Welcome to Business Talk, brought to you by businesstech.co.za, South Africa's largest business news platform. As always, I'm Michael Avery, and today we're talking about a vital yet, I think, often overlooked segment of the South African economy, the mid-market. And these are the businesses that are too big to be small, too small to be big, but they are the lifeblood of South Africa's growth, what little growth we do have. They are the big engines of job creation, of innovation in their sectors, and often dealing with immense financial pressure as well. Well, joining me to break it all down is Lunga Qegu, who is head of sales development at Investec Business, someone who works directly with these mid-sized firms to unlock funding, help them with working capital, and just to reimagine what business banking can really do for them. So, Lunga, great to have you on Business Talk. And we won't mention anything about the football and your beloved Gunners finishing second again. Let's start with the big picture, though. The mid-market is such a pivotal segment in the economy. It's often dynamic, but it's squeezed on both ends. What are the key opportunities and equally the challenges that you're seeing from your vantage point when it comes to business banking in this space?
Thank you, Michael. On my side, the mid-market, you are spot on. It's the engine room of the South African economy. And we know how resilient and how our entrepreneurs have persevered with all that happens around us. But ask any business owner or entrepreneur in South Africa, and they will tell you about the unpredictable cash flows due to a fluctuating demand, the political instability that can often lead to currency fluctuations. Businesses in this segment often have a significant amount of their capital tied up in inventory, or whether on a ship or on the floor, or losing sales due to not holding enough inventory. And so bringing in a partner with the correct, banking know-how creates a very vital and pivotal competitive advantage.
I think that relationship, when we talk about relationship banking, I know Investec is really known in the marketplace for having that high-touch relationship element to its offering on the foundations of the founders who are entrepreneurs themselves. Now, working capital is the oxygen of growth here, especially for mid-sized firms trying to scale or manage through rough patches. What approach does Investec Business take when supporting these firms with their working capital needs in such an environment?
So we know as businesses grow, they often need additional working capital to fund operations, invest in new projects, and expand into new markets. Working capital can provide the necessary funds to support this growth without compromising financial stability. How we view this is not a one-size-fits-all. Our approach is really dependent on what sector the client or what industry the client is in, the industry that the business operates in, and what objectives do the operators have for the business. Our philosophy is really about a partnership, walking the journey with our clients and understanding the client's needs. No one business is the same. I think we can all agree. So asking the right questions so that we can solution from the client's perspective is critical for us. As an example, we find different businesses in our world where one client will be requesting funding to grow and capture market share, and another will be at the end of the journey of the business. They will want to grow things like EBITDA, grow things like equity so that they can then sell. So it's important to have that view as you look into a client.
And it also reminds me of a conversation I was having with a group of business rescue practitioners on what was the one issue that they found across businesses when they're called in at that very late stage and, business is going into business rescue that the CFO or the CEO weren't managing. And that, funnily enough, is working capital. It's such a basic, it's such a fundamental thing, but it's businesses who don't really fundamentally manage that core working capital part of their business that can often come unstuck. Now, we also saw what happened through COVID, and those who were highly leveraged in a lot of debt. The tide went out and we could see who was swimming naked. Has the view on debt changed, given that it does look structurally like interest rates are higher for longer? And what funding options can businesses now look at to support their growth strategies, especially in a tough market like ours?
Yeah. So, yes, I think, if you look at the business nowadays, the view of debt has definitely changed. As an example, we had a client of ours where, it's a generation, family-owned businesses. It had run for many, many years by call it the first generation of the family. And the father was ready to retire and decided to pass the baton on to the next generation. He had run a phenomenal business, ran it to about 1.4 billion in turnover, proper EBITDA numbers of 200. But they never had any funding in the business. They did that all with the cash flow of that business, which is great. And once he passed it on to his son saw an opportunity in the market and wanted to grow the business exponentially. He changed that view of debt being seen as with caution and often associated with financial instability. He basically scaled the business to a turnover of 4 billion. He moved his EBITDA numbers to 500 million. And so many businesses now use debt as a strategic tool for growth. It allows them to leverage these borrowed funds to invest in the expansion of the business, invest in technologies, invest in critical areas, like you mentioned earlier, the operational cash flow of the business, and take advantage of opportunities in the market. I think, businesses now understand that the cheapest form of funding is actually debt, where you don't have to let go of equity in your business, but rather you stay and remain in the driving seat.
So, a lot of what the mid-market is looking for, I think, is better experiences. And I think businesses need and they want more from their banking partners. So how are you driving this with the mid-market from a lending perspective at the bank?
Yeah, that is so very true. And one can argue that the product itself that is offered by the commercial banks, including ourselves, one can argue that it's commoditized. So how does one actually differentiate themselves? Well, we speak to a lot of clients, a number of clients, and what we've seen is that this mid-market space is really not looked after from a service perspective. Clients feel that they're just a number. And what we've seen is that clients will often say when we arrive at their offices, they'll say, "Yo, Lunga, you're the first bank to ever come and walk the floors with us." And so what we want to do is differentiate ourselves by giving that private bank experience into this mid-market segment, into these businesses. We are very intentional around creating an environment where you have high service levels, so high touch and high tech to this mid-market segment.
Given that you touched on a very important point, though, it is highly commoditized. So I think finding the right lending and import partner here is critical, but often businesses don't know where to start. So what advice do you have for a business in this space if they're looking for that partner and how to go about it?
Business at its core is about relationships. I think you and I were speaking about soccer earlier, never mind my team, but we spoke around the relationships with people. So those relationships are true to this market as well. And in running a business, whether your bank, your customers, your suppliers, in this segment, the mid-market segment, which is highly competitive, highly complex, add the current macro and microeconomic conditions, the relationships you have with your banking partner or financial partner is what will give you the competitive edge. Businesses should seek a banking partner that understands the business more than just the numbers. Your bank should have understood your operational model. They should have walked the floors of your factory or warehouse to understand not just the inventory, but the logistical supply chain of that inventory. So, things like the makeup of your debtors and how it impacts your operational cash flow. I think that's vital and that's critical. And so I don't believe that the business of the future have any competitive advantage without a proper relationship with a financial institution.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's edition of Business Talk. A big thank you to Lunga Qegu, Head of Sales Development at Investec for Business, for that really insightful look at the heartbeat of the economy, the mid-market, and how a far more tailored, far more responsive banking approach can unlock enormous potential, as we heard. If you're a business owner or a financial executive in this space, I think it just might be time to rethink what your bank is doing for your business. Until next time, I'm Michael Avery. Thanks for watching. And as always, keep talking business with us here on Business Talk.